Hello and welcome to today's video, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's been on the minds of many people over basically many years now, and that's why many UK, in fact all UK theme parks and amusement parks, they don't have year-round operations and or even really long seasons. Now, I know that not every single theme park in the world has year-round operations. We've got to think, the United Kingdom, with it being in the same continent as obviously the rest of Europe, and you've got to think, in mainland Europe they have theme parks which have already world-class attractions that operate either with really much longer seasons in the UK or operate year-round. And so why do none of the UK parks operate year-round? Is it law that they have to close for a few months for winter maintenance? Or is there some other reason behind it? I don't think there's one concrete reason. I think there might be a number of reasons. Some people say it's mainly to maintain their rides, because they've got the time during the winter season to actually close the park and get all the rides maintained. Because if they don't maintain their rides during the winter, then they wouldn't be able to, operate them successfully or to a decent standard during the main season. But personally, I don't think that's true, because one, with the state that basically all the rides at Alton Towers were in last year, you wouldn't think any of them had any winter maintenance. But also, you've got to think, look at mainland Europe. Disneyland Paris is open year-round. Efteling is open year-round. Plopsaland Japan is open year-round. And these countries that these parks are in, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, what do they all have in common? They all have pretty much very similar, if not identical, climates to the UK, and those parks still manage to push through with a 365-day operation. Now, I know that not all parks in Europe have 365-day-a-year operations, but the ones that do have closed seasons have much longer seasons than UK parks and have more rides open during the winter months. So for example, Phantasialand, during their winter event, that event runs from sort of November, Christmas time up until the end of January, and they still have all of their rides open during that time, no matter the weather as well. You've seen videos online of Taron running in the snow, operating completely normally. If that happened in the UK, the whole park would just be shut because of the snow. But yeah, in Germany with Phantasialand, they know that if they can operate their rides without, unless it was a major snowstorm, which obviously that's a different matter, but if it's safe to operate their rides, which most of the time it is, then they will do. So literally during their winter event, they have every single ride open. It's not even really a Christmas event. It's still technically part of the main season. Whereas in the UK, if you have a few parks have Christmas events. Alton Towers has a Christmas event, Chessington has one. But they only have a handful of rides open. Literally, Alton Towers, for their Christmas event this year / last year, they only had Mutiny Bay and CBeebies Land open. Every other ride was shut. And Chessington as well, they only had a handful of rides open, although I believe they do have Mandrill Mayhem open and World of Jumanji open during the Christmas event as well, so I'll give them that. But that's not the full lineup being open. Thorpe Park doesn't even have a Christmas event at all. The park shuts completely after Friday nights and doesn't reopen until late March. I think the park that has probably the longest season out of all the ones in the UK are probably Blackpool or Pleasure Beach Resort, because normally they're open from it depends what season it is. They're open normally from sort of mid-February or very early March, and they close sort of early December, and that's for their full main season. Bear in mind they don't have a Christmas event, but they're only closed for maybe about 2 months during the close season. They generally have the longest season, and they have, from what I've heard, but they've had rides operate in sort of similar conditions that parks in Europe have, where they have rides in the snow. I could be wrong, but I've heard things about people riding the big one when it was -1 degrees and they've had snow. But they still do have a closed season, but they have the shortest closed seasons. I think the same could be said about Paulson's Park as well, because like this season, unlike all the other theme parks in the UK that are opening like March or early April, they open in early February. That's this, and I don't mean like for like a half-term event or anything. Their main season starts in like early February. But they still do have a closed season. But pretty much all the parks in the UK have a closed season. But like, why is that? Now, or they have really short main seasons compared to the European parks, which literally run from early spring up until like literally like sort of mid to late winter the next season, and they're only closed for about a month. Like, I'm pretty sure Fantasyland is only closed for a month for the off season, and then they're reopening like I think it's late February. Same with like Europa Park as well. They've just finished their Christmas winter event like literally last week, but during this Christmas event, all their rides are open, like as if it was a normal season, which I'm pretty sure this is technically still part of their main season because all their rides are open, and they reopen for this season in I think it's late March. So what I think should happen, but I think before I say what I think should happen, ideally, if we lived in an ideal world, is we probably should get to the bottom of why theme parks in the UK have short operating seasons and do not open at all, or open very little during the winter. Now, one reason I think it might be because of is complaints from local residents. Alton Towers is a good example of this, because Alton Towers is literally, it's had a huge impact on how the park operates and adds new attractions because of how close to a local residence it is. It is literally located right next to the village of Alton, and because of that, they've got so many constraints on them about how they operate their rides and what they can do and how high above the tree line they can build. Whether that has an impact on how long of a season they have, it possibly does. I'm not entirely sure about that. Same with like Blackpool Pleasure Beach Resort. They are literally located right next to a housing estate, where people live next to Pleasure Beach Resort. So I'm surprised that they don't get or they probably do get some complaints of noise, but I'm surprised they haven't got like loads of complaints on like the same sort of extent that Alton Towers has, where like literally Pleasure Beach, they managed to operate with probably not a lot of complaints with all these huge roller coasters towering above the neighbourhoods, whereas Alton Towers, that sort of hidden away in the trees and is very hard to get to, kind of located in the middle of nowhere, gets all these like noise complaints and whatnot. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about transportation wise, because well, I mean, this could be for Alton Towers mainly, because Alton Towers, like I just said, is located in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of like really good, in fact there's basically no like sort of good transportation links to get there. The main way to actually get to the park is by car. Like you can get there by like coach as well, but that's about it. There's no train links or no train stations or no bus stops located near the park. Yeah, transportation wise, I think Alton Towers is the main one that struggles with transportation. The other parks, like Pleasure Beach Resort, that's located right in the middle of Blackpool, so it's quite easy to get there. Thorpe Park and Chessington, they're located quite near train stations. So I think the only one that really struggles are probably Alton Towers and I think Flamingo Land, because that park's kind of located in the middle of nowhere as well. But I think another reason might be a lot of parks just use the saying of how they need to maintain, not only do they need to maintain their rides, but also that their rides can't function during the cold and freezing conditions, which I think some parks do say that, but we know that that's not entirely true, because literally manufacturers who build the same rides at like say Chessington or Thorpe Park or Pleasure Beach or Alton Towers, that built rides at like Efteling or Fantasyland, Europa Park, Disneyland Paris, Plopsaland, etc., which have their rides operating either year round or during, or even still during their winter events where it's freezing cold. So at the end of the day, there's probably like a number of very small reasons that build up as to why UK parks don't operate during the winter. But thinking about it, it can all be worked out and improved to the point where we can have these, like, it's not impossible for us to have these 365-day operations, or at least decent, like, full park operations during, like, winter events. Because we know that if Universal Studios Great Britain does get approved, and it's looking very, very, very likely that it will be, and it does open, it's going to have year-round operations. We know it will, because Universal, every other Universal theme park in the world, I'm pretty sure, has year-round operations, and we know that they're extremely good at what they're doing. Like, honestly, us in the UK, we're not ready for what Universal have planned for us, and we know that if they get this park built, they're going to run it so well and so competently that they can have it open 365 days a year. Because that just wouldn't be good if they built this park and it was the only Universal theme park in the world that didn't have 365-day operations. So I'm thinking, if Universal are going to do it, then the other parks have got to do it. Because especially like Merlin, who run the major parks in the UK that still close during the winter. Basically what I'm saying is they're going to have to open their parks during the winter if they want to compete with Universal. Because why go to Alton Towers or Thorpe Park or Chessington, which are only open for like 2/3 of the year, when you can go to Universal Studios Great Britain, which offer a much higher standard of themed experiences that are open year round. There's a no-brainer in that. Parks are going to have to change soon if they want to survive Universal, and that could start with year-round operations, or at least longer seasons. But that's what I think. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So I want to thank you all very much for watching this video, and if you've enjoyed it, then please make sure to like and subscribe, and comment what you'd like to see in the next video. Goodbye.